All right, welcome, guys. Today's podcast is gonna be different. So I'm with Henry Lee from Watchmaking Project, and we're gonna try a new podcast episode out. What you think, Henry?
Hey, Anthony. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you and your viewers
All
have in
right.
store for me.
So I mean, in the beginning, it's brand new, so we're just gonna hash out as much as we can. I'm sure there's gonna be some hiccups along the way, and we'll adjust. But I mean, it's something new, especially in this unprecedented time of the COVID. You know, we're gonna be doing things a little differently. Um, so I put out a ask me anything kind of question on Instagram and Facebook for people to submit their questions, and we got a bunch in. And the point of this podcast is essentially to be as conversational as possible and non-politically correct, as regular and layman as possible as well, while keeping it lighthearted and just having fun.
Okay,
Sounds cool.
sounds cool. Normally, I'm 4 or 5 drinks in when I chat with you. So today hopefully we'll solve some world
Well,
issues.
who said you can't drink now? But anyway, so there are a couple questions in. There are a couple serious and a couple interesting ones. Do you want to start with the funny ones first, or do you want to start with like the educational ones first?
Whichever floats
All
your
right.
boat.
So one of the first questions that came in, top pet peeves in repairs.
Well, oh, all right. So the number one peeve I have is when you open up a case back and some monkey decides to initial into the case back, scratch the job number and their name into the case back or the movement. I've had times where they've initialed the movement with like a broken oiler or something, and it is cringeworthy.
That's your top pet peeve?
That's one of my pet peeves when I open up the watch and you see like unprofessionalism by the previous person who
You want to know
toyed
something
with the
funny?
watch.
I that's also one of my pet peeves, and I put that out there on Instagram, and a lot of people
Oh, you did?
hit me back up with like telling me that Rolex and other brands do that. So I mean, they apparently still do that to this day. And what are your thoughts on that?
No, listen. They do it with like a marker, right? They do it with like a little like a fine point marker where they kind of initial their job number and then maybe their name, which if I get like an alcohol based solution, I can rub off the job number. You know what I mean? But I'm talking about watchmakers who like scratch on the job number and their initials into the case back, or almost like engrave the back of the case back and the movement with their own.
Well, I think
insignia.
Rolex uses like a scrib. No, don't. I'm pretty sure they use like a sharp, kind of like a tungsten carbide type material where it kind of etches into any type of material. I thought they used markers too because that's how they originally taught to begin with. But to my knowledge now, apparently they also use scribes as well.
Really, that's news to me because when I was working for Swatch Group, we did the whole marker thing, but then we would have different colors for different markers. So when you finish the job, it would be like a green marker. You throw in the job number, your initials.
Yeah, we did something similar like that too. In one of the companies I used to work for, they would put the initial for whether it was a quick service or a complete service, the repair number, and then the watchmaker's initials. And then but one of my points in the original post was kind of like, in this day and age, there has to be a better way for companies to actually know which repair was done by which watchmaker.
I was chatting with someone a while back, a couple of industry people, of having a way for the secondhand market to know whether or not the watch was serviced and was it serviced by like a reputable dealer. But then it turned out to be this big cumbersome project that I didn't pursue any further, right? Because usually like when you buy buy a secondhand watch, you kind of want to
Yeah.
know the service history, right? So the best way to do it is kind of to have a centralized location where you can log everything. Much like you know how you do a
Yeah.
Carfax and stuff, you type in the VIN number and then you pull up kind of the service history of the watch. But you know, it's kind of hard to track, and a lot of the watchmakers who service and stuff now, some people who still are doing servicing, they're not that tech
Yeah, I agree.
savvy. So, you know, it yeah, it needs to be like a group effort as opposed to like a single person
I
effort.
think it needs to be like a standardized approach. I mean, like like everyone kind of has to be on the same page where, um, all the watchmakers. I understand the concept of back in the days where that's kind of how they knew who worked on what watch and when it was last service. But in today's day and age, I'm sure there's a better way. If all the watchmakers got together and kind of you agreed unanimously on a standardized approach to, you know, leaving some sort of repair history.
Yeah, I could completely agree. It would help out the person. It would first, number one, create a authentication trail, right? So, you know, you type in the serial number, you know, if this was last serviced by so and so, you would know that it's an authentic, you know, Breitling, Omega, Rolex, because a lot of times I would get timepieces in and it's, you know, hey, I got this off of eBay or, you know, got this secondhand. I'm not sure if this is real. And I got a really good deal. I'm not sure if this is real. Can you please authenticate for me?
Now, what are your
You
thoughts? I
know?
mean, each
So,
time I bring this up, I always get like the opposing view. Like someone's always saying, they think it's cool. They think it's cool to have someone inscribe their initials in their case bags and leave some sort of authentic history behind the watch, and it gives it more of more of some sort of tactile, sentimental value to it by doing so. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
so I get the storytelling part. I get the fact that, you know, like they open their case back and there's like, you know, 4 or 5 or maybe 8 different job numbers and signatures on it. You know, I understand that, right? Because you know, maybe years and years ago, people kind of didn't know any better, and that's how they were taught. Because I was initially, when I first started into it, I was also taught to initial, um, but I never did because I just didn't like the fact that you deteriorate or I would leave a
Yeah.
permanent mark on that watch where my job and when my understanding of my job was to go into it and leave that timepiece as if it were brand new, right? Or as in best
Yeah.
condition as possible after I'm done with it, right? So the next person opens it, they can also see it reflects on my workmanship, right? So you know, if a person who scribed their names like by accident didn't clean it up properly and there's metal shavings in the watch, well, guess what? Like you just like you know you just
Yeah.
ruin the service or potentially a
Now, what are your
timepiece.
thoughts on? I know there was history. One of the reasons why Rolex actually switched over to scribing case bags was that they discovered with the permanent markers or with any type of sharpie or some sort of markers where you would inscribe the case back with instead, the fumes from the marker itself would actually mess with the oils in the watch.
Mm, that's a little bit too into the weeds for me. You know, at that same context, you know, you should also not wear your Rolex while walking around in a carpeted floor,
Static,
right?
yeah.
Because it creates static. You know, and you shouldn't go somewhere where it's too cold. You shouldn't go somewhere where it's too hot because you know the
Yeah.
weather affects changes, temperature changes the timekeeping functions of the
Good
movement.
point. That's a good point. So, I mean, yeah, I can see that. I mean, what would you think is a better standardized approach then? If all the watchmakers were to agree on a standardized formula, would you say some sort of initial to let everyone know whether it was a quick service or complete service, a repair number, and then the watchmaker's initials? Or I mean, what would the standardized approach you think would be?
Um, it depends, right? Because in the U.S. alone, I believe we have maybe a little under 1,000 watchmakers, right? Worldwide, there's maybe like 5 or 6,000 watchmakers. Um, First of all, there's language barriers. Once you go to, Europe, you go to like India, you go to China, like, everyone's full service, could be complete maintenance service. It could be FS, and in French, it could be
Mm-hmm.
something completely different, right? So it's hard to kind of say in stone, this is what I think it should be. I think it should be kind of a group
Mm-hmm.
effort by all the watchmakers and horologists and kind of industry people to like, hey, this is kind of how we would like to take secondary market. This is kind of like the
So like
approach we'd like.
if you had every single watch brand, every single watch company, every single watch school in a meeting, how would you? I mean, what would you advise them in terms of what the standardized approach should be? Because I think some sort of information to let. If we all agreed, let's just say language barrier wasn't an issue, and then everyone was to say, all right, this is a complete service, this was a full service or a quick service. Here's the repair number, and this was the watchmaker and the year that it was worked on. Right? Would you agree on that?
Yeah, yeah, and if parts were changed or like if they had any findings, because in Swatch Group we use SAP, and then like when I would get a comeback of another watchmaker, it would be my job to kind of take like kind of dissect
Mm.
what went wrong, and then through my findings I put it into SAP, like so and so job number, these were the findings, maybe screw wasn't too tight or wrong oil was used or dirt and debris was found, and then I would initial it,
Mm.
right, and then do a service.
Okay,
So
that's good. I think one of my pet peeves in repairs is like people butchering the movement or the parts before I even get a chance to work on it. For example, like old banking pins, if they adjusted the banking pins instead of doing their job, that screws it up for me altogether. Um,
it's funny you say that. I have a Peter Speakmarin watch on my bench right now that no one would take on, and I was like, oh, it shouldn't be that bad. And I opened up the watch, and they Swiss cheese the
oh
balance, because they were trying to take out material. They snapped off the escape wheel pivots. Screws are missing, and it's like the worst part is the rep in the U.S. He won't get back to me, and then secondly, the movement company Techno Time is out of service or is not in is bankrupt. It's no longer a functioning company. Because I reached out to Heinrich in the
yeah,
Lockley, and I was like, hey, dude, I'm sitting on a piece here. Can you help me out here? Like, can you like poke around in the Lockley and see in Switzerland like where I can source
yeah.
like the movement parts? Because it's not worth me to sit there and make those parts. Because in the long run, that watch is going to run into additional issues.
Wait, so
So
you took that on without even taking a look at the watch?
so the watch itself looked decent. But yeah, I again obviously like I tell everyone who gives me a watch for an estimate, like I won't really know until I
Yes.
sit on the bench and get deep into the weeds, because sometimes people mess little things up that maybe you can fix, or you can kind of like you can fix and try to repair it before uh, you would have to get a new
Funny you
one.
mentioned Heinrich. I was about to say I thought Heinrich was friends with Peter. No, I thought last I checked, I think they work together. So I mean, for
Yes,
those who don't know,
they
Heinrich is a friend of ours. He runs his own school in Switzerland. Heinrich Corpula. Um, but yeah, just for those people who are listening that don't know who Heinrich is that we're talking about.
Yes, Henry Corporal is a dear friend of ours. He runs KHWCC in the Lockley, Switzerland. It's a very highly specialized independent watchmaking school in Switzerland. Um, and he was obviously before he founded his school, he was a teacher at WOSEP for many years. And yeah, decided that there was a
Yeah.
niche
So I mean,
market
look,
for him.
wait, doesn't Heinrich know Peter? Like, can't Heinrich just reach out to Peter? Like, hey,
Yes, Peter Speakmarin no longer, is affiliated with the watch company. He's him and Heinrich are working on the Naked Watchmaker, Naked Watchmaker together, which is, I believe, a visual collection of movements, beautiful movements, getting deconstructed and broken down, and you know, getting their movements under the sun, under the light, and under the eyes of many watch enthusiasts.
Well, I just figured maybe Peter could help out. I guess not.
Yeah, no,
I
I
mean, it is
wasn't.
his brand,
I
no?
wasn't gonna like. No, yeah, that's very true. He did start the watch brand, but from my understanding, I don't know Mr. Speakmarin personally. It's from my understanding he no longer runs the company anymore. So, or he's not involved with the company anymore. He's fully 100% like dedicated to, education and
Watchmaking.
advancement
Okay,
of
that's cool.
letting other
I can
people know
dig
about
that.
watchmaking. Yeah.
All right, well, that answers this question. Man, you should see some of the questions that came in. A lot of them are interesting. Another question is, okay, is it okay for high horology brands to save costs by leaving surfaces unfinished?
If so, my opinion on that is if you're telling the end user or the client that it's the timepiece they're receiving is, it has Geneva stripes, it has ancrage, it has sablage, it has the whole, the whole 9 yards of the high end finishing aspect of watchmaking, then by all means, please try to do that. If not, then you're essentially lying and swindling your
Yeah.
clients, right? And some brands, they say all this stuff, but it's machine, and as a watchmaker who works on different types of watches and finishes and movements, you can tell like, oh, this is machine, this was definitely
That's
finished by
kind of
hand.
like this is funny you mentioned that. It's kind of like when you open up a watch that's like $20,000 and the inside's really just like a $60-$70 movement.
I'm not going to drop names
Yeah,
of
let's not do
brands
that. We're
that
gonna
do
get our
that,
podcast
but
taken down.
I have we're going to cease and desist. But listen, I had one like a very high end brand, obviously, that had like maybe a $40 or like $30 quartz movement
Yikes.
inside, and I'm like, what's the price tag
Yeah,
on
that
this
that
watch?
actually,
So
speaking of
yeah,
this, I think that's one of my pet peeves too. I mean, knowing the price value for some of these watches and then opening them up and seeing the insides of it, it's really disappointing.
yeah, because so before I opened the
Oh,
watch,
for
we look at
sure.
the price tag. I used to get the watches in, before, and then like the price tag be there. Like, oh look, it's cost. This is. I'm like, all right, there's probably a nice movement inside, and you take off
You used to
the
feel good
couple of the
about it too. Like,
screws.
let's say you get a watch and you're like, oh shit, this is $60,000. Yeah, I'm working on a $60,000 watch.
Yep.
But yeah,
And then you'd open it up, and then it's like, oh gosh, what is this thing? This is
oh,
offensive
for
to
sure.
my eyes.
All right. Okay. So I mean, I agree too. I think yeah, I think high horology brands, if you're going to be selling that price point to clients and whatnot, leaving surfaces unfinished would be akin to selling mediocre movements. You know what I mean? What's the point of that? I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So like if you're telling them like, hey, this is buy the $60,000 watch just because it's affiliated with so and so like a luxury brand, then fine. But if you say buy the $60,000 watch because we have all this great finishing and all this hand finishing and all this like black polishing and stuff, and then like inside it's kind of lackluster, doesn't perform up to your marketing standards, then by all means, please do not like market something
yeah,
that's not true.
actually, speaking of this, what are your thoughts on buying watches for the movement and buying watches for the brand? I mean, speaking of this, I mean, it's kind of like saying, I mean, I've seen I've seen Swiss Army with like 7750 inside, and then I've seen other brands that sell for 4 or 5 times that value with 7750s inside as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some brands add something different to it.
Oh, you're saying they
So
mod it?
yeah, I mean they mod it. Sometimes I guess that justifies that R&D justifies the
But what do you think
cost.
about it? Do you agree with that? I mean, if you do you agree with buying watches for the movement or buying it for the brand itself?
You know, I'm torn between this question because I do both, right? Like I mean, like like I love I love the JLC brand, right? And I love the movement that JLC brand has, and I love other like like Panerai, Panerai's not bad, right? When Panerai has their own version of 7550, and I used to get when I couldn't afford higher end brands, I had like a Beluga that was like a 7750 inside, and I was so proud of the like $200-300 watch because that was
Yeah.
kind of the value of the movement, right? So I mean, yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right. So, one thing you hate the most in watchmaking.
Hmm. So that's a loaded question. It's kind of like very general. Is there? Can you?
I mean, that's a question, man. That's a question that came. They're like, what's the one
Sure.
thing you hate the most in watchmaking? I guess it's not. I guess it's not.
Why don't you?
I
Why
guess
don't you
it's not
start?
related. It doesn't have to be. Okay, so I'm gonna take this as general as possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be, movements or in watches itself. Watchmaking, I would take watchmaking as the industry as a whole. I think one of the things I hate the most is the lack of spotlight in watchmaking. The lack of education. If you look at the discrepancies between the salespeople, the service associates, and the watchmakers, it's a huge difference. The salespeople who are selling the watches don't even educate the clients in terms of what to expect, and then that in and of itself leads to so many problems that the service associates have to deal with, which at the end trickles down to the watchmaker. Like how many times have clients brought in watches saying that the watch isn't working, when in reality they never knew they needed to wind the watch. And that's one of the things I hate the most. It's just the constant reiteration. It's the education. It's the lack of education. It's the lack of spotlight. It's the lack of. If there were more eyes on this specific topic, this specific situation, rather than looking at it as a whole of a luxury industry, I think watchmaking will flourish even better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that statement. And also, I keep on forgetting you wrote the book, right? You wrote the book, and there's chapters and pages and essays you have dedicated to like like reality versus expectations. So yeah, I keep on forgetting that. But yeah, I also to add to that, one thing I don't like about some of that stuff is um, people who get too technical with things that you could explain, kind of like
Yes.
explain in black and
Yes.
white, right? Like when you like okay, as a watchmaker, like I would have sometimes maybe they're leaving school or whatever, they just finished school and they're trying to be as technically proficient or technically sound as professional as possible, and it's like, oh, I like adjusted the end chick like X amount, like getting really specific, and it's like, okay, just put the watch on my bench, like what issue you having trouble with, let me feel, like it's just like that kind of is a pet peeve for me, right? Like, and I get they're trying to speak the language, and it's like when doctors talk to doctors, that's what they say. But sometimes, like utilizing Occam's razor, nothing. The simplest way is probably the
I
best way,
actually agree with that a lot. I
right?
mean, but there are a couple things I do want to raise a point on. I mean, I do agree with you that a lot of watchmakers and a lot of people in the industry try to sound more technical and high end and complicated as they possibly can to no good reason. And then at the same time, there also has to be some sort of language agreement. Like if, for example, if I have a problem with a watch and I'm coming to you with it, I probably want to let you know, like, hey, I did adjust this X, Y, and Z, just so you kind of know what I did beforehand. But I agree that people try to make it sound way more complicated than it really is.
Yeah, it's I'm not trying to like when I'm trying to like fix an issue with a move, like I'm trying to like fix a movement issue, I don't want to listen to a technical guide,
Agreed.
right? to be honest, I want to put it on the microscope. I want it on my bench. I kind of want to feel and kind of see and kind of like replicate the issue that the person was facing, so that I can myself try to come up with a solution and not have to sound logical and not have to sound too technical when I explain it to them. So
I agree. One of the things is like sometimes some of these, speaking of like language and terminology, I mean, one of the things that, to your point, one of these things where a lot of these watch companies, they make up these names and these terminologies to make the watch sound that much more complicated and that much more enticing. Like, that's what blows my mind all the time.
Well, you have to understand it's marketing, right? How can I spin this?
Yeah.
I mean, that's their careers, and there's industries based on selection of words and choice of usage of words for certain things, so that it can appeal a potential buyer.
You're breaking up. Hello? Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
But
Okay, awesome.
yeah, man, I agree. I agree 100%. Man, we got so many questions coming in, man. I don't know if we can finish all these in time. We might have to do like a second episode after this. All right. So I don't want to butcher this question, so I'm gonna read it exactly as is, and don't don't hold me to it, okay? If you had to choose, would you have a watch logo branded on your forehead, but be legendary in the watch industry for all of history, or be normal and be the laughing stock in the watch industry for the rest of history?
Be normal
For
and
the
be a
rest of
laughing
history.
stock. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
am I
you can
gonna curse?
curse.
I don't like. I'm not like. Yeah. I prefer not to have my forehead branded. I'm not a fucking cattle. So I'd rather you laugh at me and not give me your work than to walk around, then wake up every morning looking at my forehead.
That means your
knowing that there's a
kids and
brand on
your
my forehead.
kids, and everyone's gonna look in the history of watchmaking and look at you and know that you're the laughing cow.
Hey, find another industry. I don't know.
It's tough,
tell you.
man. I don't know.
I'll become a car mechanic. Like from fixing watches, I'll fix cars. Like I'll be the best car fixer. I'll be the best restorer for vintage cars.
I almost want to agree with you, but I don't know. Being legendary in the watch industry for the rest of history, at least you're in the history books.
Yeah, I'm not Harry Potter. Sorry, like you can get your forehead branded, dude. I'm not like I like the forehead the way it is.
Well, that's good to know. It's tough, man. I think I think I agree with you. I think I'll be normal and just leave the industry and just get good.
No, come on, really? With a book and your following? There's no way you do it.
It's like, the way I think about it is, how many people try to be legendary in history? How many people want to have their names known? How many people want to leave an impact on the rest of the world for for even long after they're gone? Having a watch branded on your forehead might be just a minor consequence,
Hey, listen, there are people who want to be Harry Potter. I'm just trying to live my good life. I'll go work at a small mall changing batteries. Like they'll never know about any watch industry guys at a mall changing batteries. So I'm good with that.
That's good. I mean, I don't know, that question was interesting. And then another question that came in was to roast them. I don't know. People want to not you. People want to get roasted. Like, they want us to look at them on their Instagram and roast them.
Give me the Instagram and we'll roast every day.
We'll do it next. in the next podcast. I put that aside. But that's a good one. We should definitely try to take a look at that. We got to do it in a way where it's not well, we don't get sued or cease and desist or some shit.
Wait, the
Yeah,
guy said roast him. I'm gonna. Oh, how are we gonna get a cease and desist
I
if
don't
he's
know.
telling us to roast him?
People come to join watchmaking and bullshitting, and next thing you know, they're getting roasted and shit.
Yeah, but that's the bullshitting part of watchmaking. We're
Here, let me
bullshit.
save this question, and we can revisit this in the next one. Biggest change. What are your thoughts on the biggest changes in watchmaking post COVID?
That's listen. Everyone wasn't as this also doesn't have to relate to watchmaking, right? Because I feel like everyone is some industries were more vulnerable than others, and obviously, if you're on the after sales service side, no one was taking in watches, like no big name brands had their doors open. Maybe some stuff is still being sold kind of through online, but immediately the experience that clients used to have, VIP clients used to have, just like ceased overnight, right? I was having a discussion with a couple buddies of mine, like he went from going out like 6 7 nights a week to staying home for 3 months,
Yeah,
right? And that's a complete lifestyle change, and that shows you how fragile um, the kind of like the
yeah.
situation everyone's in
I
right now.
mean, I don't know. I think I know for a fact. Post during the whole COVID situation, a lot of watch companies, their e-commerce went up through the roof. It was holiday season for them every single day. So I think what COVID has actually done was introduce people who would usually never go online to buy watches to actually bridge that gap and take that first step.
Yeah, I mean, now a lot of industry companies are going on web conferences or video conferences to showcase their new watches. So I mean, everyone's making a shift online. I mean, not only the watch brands. I feel like everyone is, and this shows you not every meeting has to be a
Oh,
face
for
to face
sure. I
meeting.
mean, I think the
You know,
watchmaking industry's never they've stuck to the old school traditions and they've yet to experience the technological advances that a lot of other companies are already experiencing.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I don't know about you, but some after sales service places were giving, not giving, but they were like letting people bring benches home,
Really?
equipment and stuff, so they can kind of service watches. Yeah, yeah. Like I had a very uh, adjusted schedule for people at the workshop, right? And then I also kind of set up a clean room environment for my
I
like
would
work
have.
from home situation because I also
I can only
servicing some
imagine
watches.
the insurance issues you'd have if they can do that. No.
Yeah, so the thing is, I wasn't holding whole pieces of watches, but it was more like the movements, stuff that like the watch and stuff, and all that. A lot of the major components were at the safe and in the workshop, where insurance, where we had insurance. And then that was just servicing the movements, and when it would be done, I would go back and
Now, is this
work on that.
for
Yeah.
every single repair, or is this just for like emergency watches that you need to get out like ASAP?
No, no, it's just for like stuff that's like pending and stuff that's kind of like rushed. Um, so it's not
Everyday
like
thing, right?
there were like 4 or 5 different workshops. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like, a piece here, a piece there, like I'm working on like a very vintage, Fusi chain
Yeah.
pocket watch that was clients like, great great grandfather's, time, like the pocket watch. So like, I have that with me where I'm slowly working on it, slowly kind of like restoring it back to its former
Okay.
glory.
How did you fare up in the whole COVID situation? Is everything all right with with your company and all that? Did you see an increase or decrease, or was it just the same amount of workload?
there was exponential increase in private clients that sent
Ah,
us work. So people weren't buying new watches, so they were rather restoring and servicing the watches they had. So we saw an increase kind of like from that avenue, and then a decrease in trade work, right? So like the more um, institutionalized organizations we handle, and a bunch of jewelry companies, they kind of ceased uh, sending work, kind of like overnight. And
yeah.
obviously, that goes without saying, because everything shut down,
Now,
it's fair.
do you think that
Um,
compared to the other industries, okay, do you think that the watchmaking industry got hit hard? Do you think it suffered, or do you think it? I think, or do you think the watchmaking industry did fairly well considering how much the other industries got impacted?
so I used to be privy to a lot of those sales numbers at a former organization I worked in, but I don't. I'm not part of the kind of the sales process or the retail aspect of it. And I'm going on a hunch. I'm going on what I've seen people do. So I've seen people not spend as much on luxury goods and not spend as much on retail stuff. So and even if they were buying, they would try to buy it secondhand, or they would buy it and they would negotiate a fee where um, it was agreed upon. So, I mean, I think the retail sector got hit hard. I feel like, no new watches were being sold, as much. Obviously, tourism stopped as
True.
well.
True.
So I used to remember working at another uh, boutique where, certain months, would make and break their year
Oh,
cycle,
for sure.
their annual bottom line, because it would be.
You broke up there, Henry.
Yeah, it would be tourist season,
Yeah.
So that now that tourism's air travel and all that stuff is stopped, I feel like that would impact it dramatically.
Now, compared to other industries, do you think watchmaking got hit hard?
Yeah,
Okay.
watchmaking as far as retail, like retail selling.
See, I don't know. I mean, I this is my opinion. Okay, I don't. I think the watchmaking went. I'm talking about the industry as a whole, right? I think the industry got. I mean, I'm sure they got hit. Every industry got hit, but what I think is that I don't think the watchmaking industry got hit as hard as all the other industries did. Okay, I think as long as there's some sort of hierarchy system in the world where there's the upper class, middle class, and lower class, there's always going to be sales coming in, whether it's through online sales or secondhand sales, pre-owned, vintage, you name it. And I do agree with you that the retail section got hit hard, and tourism went down. So I'm sure globally, purchases of new watch in terms of tourism went down. But I still think that as a whole, that money that they would have spent in tourism for watches and while they're traveling abroad, I think they still spent that sooner or later, whether it's through e-commerce or secondhand watches or pre-owned watches or getting their own watches repaired. I think that money got repooled into other facets of watchmaking. I don't know if watchmaking as a whole got hit as bad as the airline companies, you know what I mean? Or I don't think the watchmaking industry got hit as hard as the industry as a whole.
You see, I don't agree with that. I think everyone got hit hard because, I mean, when you're not selling, or when you're selling minimal amount of pieces in the 3 months and you're not servicing, it's like you're not running to the fullest your capabilities. So that's almost a quarter, or let's say half year it lost in revenue and productivity, right? So where a lot of service centers, they weren't open. What would how does that affect? That's just a backlog of work that it creates, and that's just people not being um, productive. And obviously, sorry, because I used to work in after sales service center, and
Yeah, no, for sure.
meeting KPIs and production and productivity and managing those, was important because that would affect obviously your bottom line, whether you got a bonus or not.
But see, I don't know. Like for example, I know for example, like what you said, service centers and everything got backlogged. But these companies, in states that have already opened up, they're getting these work done. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I mean, even though the work got backlogged, the work is still going to get done by the end of the year. So the past couple months or several months due to the lockdown that no one got working, when the states and everything like that opened up, as we've seen already, like I'm sure these watchmakers, these companies are gonna get that return, those watches repaired, and on top of that, when they come back into to full the full swing of things post COVID, they have the e-commerce that's already taken off. So I still think that, sooner or later the work's gonna get done.
No, I also agree with that, right? Like, but and also agree with the fact that like this current predicament or situation the world is in opened up other avenues for a lot of industries, right? So, so yeah, obviously this is a good segue into maintaining an online brand presence, right?
Yeah,
Because that's ultimately the shift in the world, right? Everyone went from in-person meetings, flying to meeting people, to just going to the Zoom meetings, right? Like
yeah,
there was a investment banking thing that they got a bunch of funding, so instead of going on physical road shows, they just went on a Zoom road show,
yeah.
and they got the funding they needed in like a fraction of the time. It normally takes a couple weeks on the road, and they got it like within a week.
How did you do? Did you do Zoom with your watchmaker? Did you Zoom with your company and whatnot?
FaceTime.
FaceTime?
We did FaceTime, and then we would hop on kind of all hands on deck calls. And yeah, I mean, mostly, I'm trying to, like, we manage everything. I try to manage everything digitally. And then so, Sarah and Destiny, who work for WMP, obviously they're based out of Atlanta and they help out, remotely. So I've set it up where this we can be operational. We have a couple watchmakers on the bench that it's business as usual.
Hmm. I mean, I tried using Zoom for like the first week or two, and it was going well. But I think there was some sort of I don't know how accurate this is, but I saw in the news like there was a huge privacy issue they had or something like that. Something about your information being sold to out of the country and whatnot.
No,
Um,
so they would have hackers Zoom bomb you, right? And that's essentially where a bunch of random people um, join your Zoom call and kind of wreak havoc, right? So let's say if you were in an important business meeting, like I was on a call with a small business association in New York, just to get clarification on the programs and stuff that are currently out there given this current economy, and we were Zoom bombed, right? Like
oh crap!
they were throwing like racial slurs, they were saying the N word, they were saying Chinese people caused this whole thing, and then obviously that they eventually found them and kicked them off, but early on that was an issue, and that I felt like Zoom at that stage wasn't ready for the world to be logged into Zoom, right?
Oh,
Zoom was
for
right.
sure. Yeah,
Zoom was for sure comfortable with having large corporations kind of pick up their instance and do the video calls that they needed to. But then when schools were doing it, when a lot of telemedicine, they were
yeah,
getting into it, that opened a whole new vector of attack for them because believe it or not, like there are a lot of pedophiles out there who would like to see kids on the internet, right? Like they'd like to
yeah,
see kids like jump and like do stuff, and that's why like I had a friend of mine who went as congressman when the school asked the student, his daughter of his, to send a video or send a picture of his daughter, his teenage daughter, through this like online platform so that they can confirm like she's doing gym or something. He's like, heck no,
oh wow, I didn't
because
know.
that's, yeah, that I mean there are a lot of there as much good people as there are in the world. There's equally the same amount of people who want to do other people harm.
Yeah, I transferred from Zoom right away into Google Meets. I think that was easier for me with my guys. But I didn't know that. Wow, shoot.
Yeah, be careful of who you're letting control or handle your information.
Wow, shit.
It's important to have your online security in check, because one wrong move and then
That's it.
that's all they need is that one wrong move and your life is hell.
So did you see any increase in online interactions during during the whole COVID situation with your company? Did you see any
Yeah,
increase
of course. I mean, the people would hit me up and chat me and say like they have a watch, and like how should they get us over the watch? Are we gonna meet in person? And I told them obviously we have there's a UPS storefront where we have kind of a box where if you can kind of drop off your watch, and I'll pick it up, sanitize it, take a picture of it, let you know like, hey, we have your watch.
Actually, what's your disinfectant procedures? Like, has your take-in process changed since?
Uh, Not really. To be honest, I don't. The whole thing of it being highly contagious, like I just didn't see that. I would
Oh,
obviously
you
when we
mean
get the watch in, like some places are like putting in ultrasonic, some places are like putting it on the UV, some
yeah?
places aren't touching the watches for like a week or a couple of days or something. Like we still get the watch in, and we do like a general wipe down of this the case itself.
What do you
But
use to
yeah,
wipe it down? Alcohol
just
or?
alcohol wipe. 75% alcohol wipe, just to clean the watch head so it's not too filthy. And then I would take with the ladies would take pictures, and we would send it over to the client to let them know that we have their timepiece.
Now, in terms of your bracelets and in between the crevices or the leather straps, like how are you sanitizing that?
We don't, right? Like the straps, we put the straps aside. Obviously, we don't want to put uh, any
You
type.
don't want to damage the strap with alcohol, right?
Yeah, I don't want to damage the strap at all. So we normally put straps aside. If it's a bracelet, then that can get dumped into the
Now,
ultrasonic machine.
the strap and stuff, you just
And
leave it aside for a couple of days.
we take it out and put it into another
Oh,
Ziploc bag
okay.
and then put it with the job. So it's like it stays contained while we wipe the watch head
So
down.
the funny thing about talking about the take-on process, I had one of my guys actually do some research on ultraviolet, and the rundown essentially was ultraviolet, UVA, UVB, and UVC, right? So they say UVC kills the virus, but is the one with the highest amount of harm to the human body. And the funny thing is that in Asia, I think they have buses and trains where they sanitize the entire area, the entire train, the entire bus with the ultraviolet C, and they just flash it. So I mean, I don't know I don't know how the industry might even be going about disinfecting their taking process or with these watches. Um,
I feel like
or do you think it's overrated?
they should do. I think they should do what they feel comfortable for themselves. So if they want to take it in and like not touch the watch for 2 weeks, and then open the watch, and then feel like it's been safe, that coronavirus has died, then by all means, right? It's like it's whatever their own comfort level is.
Now, what about the
You
what about the
know?
lead times? What about what about like the due dates? Like a lot of times, like a lot of these companies are operating under like huge productivity levels, and on top of that, you have to deal with the amount of employees. Like because if someone gets sick from it, it's kind of like a liability right there.
Um, that that's a tough one. When we intake watches, obviously we're geared up, right? We're we're not taking anyone's watches in and sniffing the bracelet and sniffing the watch head. So if someone decides to rub the watch case into their eyeballs and try to get themselves sick, they could sue the company. By all means, that's their prerogative, right? But I'm I'm comfortable.
I'm picturing a client I'm picturing like a watchmaker just like jamming it into his eyeball, like arm cheese galore.
Yeah, he's gonna collect ETO, like sick days, baby. Here they come. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, right? Like whatever makes them feel comfortable, whatever process they like to feel, safe. Like I remember from like the first day, like during the coronavirus, so you would buy groceries and you would literally leave it in the hallways, wipe every single thing down, and then like bring it back in. Now it's just like, oh, whatever, buy it. Like just like it's like one wipe across like 18 different purchases, and then like it's clean.
I was watching videos on I saw some videos on YouTube or Facebook or something like that where like this guy was, I don't know, I think it was OCD level cleaning, but he took in the entire bag, wiped down the entire bag, wiped down every single item, cleaned every single item, by the time he was done cleaning his groceries, he probably went through an entire box of Clorox or Lysol wipes or something like that. And I was just like, I don't know if that's even...
You see, a lot of people for the first month, they were doing that. And then the WHO came out and, the World Health Organization came out with like, oh, by the way, it's not as contagious as we think. Like it's not as...
I saw this thing about from the World Health Organization. They're saying that asymptomatic carriers are rare. Like the transmission is rare now. Meanwhile, before they were saying it was like a primary form of transmission.
And they also did say like if your blood type is O or something, that you have higher immunity to the coronavirus. I mean, listen, they're changing this stuff, like not changing it, but like there are new updates to this like almost every day, and it's getting to the point where like a month 3, month 4, you're kind of like beaten to death by COVID-19 news. So it's like, oh, whatever, like I don't like at this point, as long as I'm doing my part, like, and obviously I got tested. I'm in the heart of New York City. Right, and there were concerns, of loved ones I had, and I went to get tested for number one, COVID-19, and then number two, the blood test, which tests for antibodies, and I was negative for both. So
now, what was the process? Did it jam like this huge swab up your nose?
Oh yeah, if you saw, what Cuomo, the governor of New York, went through, pretty much what I went through. They shoved a swab, kind of like it tickles your eyeballs.
It's something you're used to, huh?
If we had a visual medium, you would see what finger I'm holding for you right now, Anthony.
Yeah, no, I mean, man, and now since you're in the heart of New York City, have you seen anyone even practice social distancing anymore? I mean, I've seen videos and I've seen clips of like St. Mark's of everyone just chilling and everyone just walking around almost as if COVID-19 wasn't even an issue.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been indoors for a better part of 3 to 4 months, right? Like it's hard. I get it, right? Again, just try to maintain distance, and if you can't maintain distance, put the mask on. That's kind of like the going. That's kind of the unspoken rule in New York City. So like, I would walk, to take my morning walks and go here and there, pick stuff up, and it's getting really hot in New York City. So I pull my mask down when there's no one around. When I see someone, I pull my mask back up, just so that I'm, reasonable.
Now, do you agree with classifying this as a new normal? Or do you think later on down the line, no one's gonna be wearing masks anymore?
You see, I think this is still fresh, right? There's still I don't think the first wave is over, because it's still very much something that people worry about. So I think until we have a working vaccine where people can kind of go get like a flu shot or a coronavirus shot, that it will be a concern for people, right? And I mean, just look at the Spanish flu, right? When that first came, everyone they were also wearing face masks, right?
Okay. So. Well, Wow, I mean, we've already been 50. We've already been a good like an hour in. We'll probably just answer one more question. I mean, there's a bunch of questions still. But we'll answer one more question and then we'll wrap it up. How's it sound? All right.
Sounds great.
So this next question is one watch. Actually, no. Before I even say that, I had I had done an Instagram poll. If you had to choose one utensil for the rest of your life, one utensil to use for everything you eat, would it be a spoon or a fork?
Neither. Chopstick.
That's cheating because a lot of people hit me up with that, and I'm like, no, that doesn't count. If you had to choose between a spoon or a fork, one of the two.
No, but you said, but before you preface a spoon and fork, you said utensil, right? Like,
how are you gonna eat?
I'm
how
pretty
are you
sure.
gonna eat steak with the chopstick?
You want to watch me do
it? That's just cheating, all right?
Hey, Mama Lee taught me well. I don't know about you, Anthony, but yeah.
All right. Well, look. Okay, so this guy chose a spoon. Okay, the guy who's asking the question, he said he chose a spoon. But anyway, the he said one watch for the rest of your life. Which one would it be?
I'm stuck between Audemars Piguet or Jaeger-LeCoultre. I might probably do Jaeger.
You would choose AP? Is that even a debate?
I was stuck between an AP. No, I was stuck between AP and a Jaeger. But yeah, I'd probably be stick with JLC.
What watch from JLC?
The ultra thin.
Ultra thin?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. The ultra thin. Now, what was your choice for AP?
I believe it is a blue dial, dual time power reserve.
Okay, now are we talking about? Now, are you looking at how are you basing this judgment? Are you basing this off of complication, or are you basing this off of utility? Like, what are you basing this off of? Service life?
Neither. No, none of that. Like everything you just mentioned, it was like way too technical for me. I'm basing off of stuff that I like.
So you're just basing off pure interest.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy that timepiece. Or those timepieces.
You know, I don't. What would you say is the service cost of an AP or the service cost of a JLC?
See, now you're asking AB -1, AB -2. Hey, buddy, are we slowly just keeping this very high level?
No, you're right. But see, the way I'm basing this off of is, if I had to choose one watch for the rest of my life, I'm basing this off of like an overall holistic
How
approach.
Much the service
you know
cost?
what I mean? Like I'm thinking ahead, like service life, parts availability. You know, is it durable? Can I wear this in any occasion? You know, like how flexible and versatile it is.
You know, why don't you just get like a 2892 or get like a 7750? Just like, and then just
because
be done
if
with
that was the case,
you obviously don't like the finer things in life.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but if I had to choose one watch for the rest of my life, and I'm factoring all these into equation, I think I'd choose a Rolex. Honestly, I mean, not to. I think that's so cliche, though. I don't want.
That's very Anthony. That answer is very Anthony-esque, and I can see that. I can see that because you have a fixed cost. There's a allotted certain amount of spare parts for the movements. You guarantee the same product over and over and over again. So yeah, I think that suits. That answer suits.
I can't tell if this is a passive aggressive thing or that sounds so passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive.
I mean, you're
I don't know what you're
shy
talking
inch
about.
away from just saying that's a typical response from you. I completely expected that coming from you. That's you're shy. You're like one word shy from saying that.
Hey,
but
look.
Here's what I'm saying. You can't wear that ultra thin in everything you're gonna be doing. You know, like if I
want to bet,
you're gonna have a broken JLC in no time.
That I can fix.
But what about parts availability? See, that's where I'm coming from. I'm basing it off of what I can fix, how available the parts are, how versatile, and how often I will have to get a service.
For me right now, I have the parts.
I guess you like to live life a little dangerously.
20, 30 years. Listen, I'm one of those guys that like I am a little rough. I'm not rough. I'm not like I won't buy something that I won't wear, that I won't use, right? Like, I like to get utility out
Okay.
of something I purchase, right? So if I bought a watch I wear, I'm gonna wear it, right? Whether I sweat in it, whether like I bang it, I'm not gonna go do construction in my JLC, obviously, but like I'll wear it out, like I'll wear it to places, and I won't be scared if a scratch happens or if I bump it, like I had a Speedy that like I hit the door on something by accident and it popped the crystal popped out.
Wait, what? How hard did you? How hard
Literally, it
did
was like,
you hit
and
your Omega? Jeez, that doesn't just happen, dude.
it was it happens to
What did you
me,
hit the
like
wall? Did you hit the
it was
wall with
kind of
your
like
arm out the car or something? What happened there?
no, so like how you're running after the door before it closes and you're like, oh, and you reach for it, and like I caught the tip of the door and my watch caught the edge of the
How
door frame.
fast were you freaking running?
I was maybe a bit enthusiastic that day, so to speak. I might have had a pre-workout or one too many coffees and needed to get to where I was
And your
going.
crystal popped off
Um,
clean, or did it break?
no, it was acrylic. It popped off clean, and then I just looked at it, a 2 second rule, blew it, and then I was like, oh, it's fine. I put it right back in. And no, wait. So before I even did it, I looked around. Like,
Oh
see that?
shit!
All right, good. I blew it a couple times, and then like just slapped it back in. Then yeah.
I think that really suits this podcast, man. Watchmaking and bullshitting. Jeez. Now, did you fix that right away, or did you send it into the Omega, or did you fix it? Your Omega.
Fix what?
The acrylic crystal.
When I put it back in, it stayed.
You just
there
popped
was
it right
no
back
issue
in?
with it. Yeah, I pressed it with my palm down, and I looked around. I shook my hand. I shook my wrist a little. I was like, all right, like it's not popping out, right? Now I'm gonna make a mental note not to run the watch into a corner of the door.
Oh my god, this is like heresy. This is like watchmaking. Don't do this in watchmaking 101.
Hey, listen, I'm trying to keep this non-bullshitty, so it works.
Now I'm gonna get.
Why would you want to touch something
get
that
an
works?
influx of people DMing me saying that that's exactly what they're gonna be doing for the rest of their life.
But listen, I noticed nothing was wrong with timekeeping, right? Like the watch was still running fine, like I obviously hit the crystal clean off and popped off, and I put it back in. It wasn't like it wasn't like if I would have jammed the hands, or would have like if I would have seen the visible damage to the dial, then I'm like, all right, cool. I have to like take it apart and then clean it up and like fix it.
Now,
But I mean,
you don't
like
think
I
that
said,
some sort of impact damage occurred to your watch when you hit it at that rate?
yeah, again, it occurred on the acrylic. I
don't know if that speaks more volume about your acrylic crystal or about the rate of your wrist.
Listen, however you want to take this story is on you, right? Because I've told many people who come to me for service, they're like, oh, I just want to service the watch. I'm like, well, is it still running? He's like, yeah. Did you drop it? No. When was the last time you serviced it? And they're like, oh, like we bought the watch brand new. Like this is like the third or fourth year. Like we'd like to get it serviced. I'm like, well, you don't notice anything wrong with it?
Now that I agree with.
Like,
that I agree.
I'm not trying to take money from you that I'd like to have, obviously, but like I'm not trying to do you a disservice by telling you to service something that doesn't need it. And that was the same situation I had with my watch.
I don't know if that's the same situation.
After the shock damage, I assessed it, right? I popped it back in, and then I timed it. I assessed it, and it was like still running within my tolerance. And I was like, all right, cool.
Now, what's your tolerance?
-1 plus or minus 6.
That's a standard.
Seconds per day. Yeah, and it maybe was running fast 3 seconds, and then it got pushed up to like 5 or 6 seconds, right? And then I was like, all right, cool. I'm not. It's not a big deal, right? I'm not one of these guys that wears a watch, and that watch like is it's not my first baby, so to speak.
You rather own the watch.
So like I'm not.
I
yeah, and you see that with guys with cars, new watches, and it's just like sad. Like they'll buy it and they'll just dump it into the safe, and they won't get utility out of it. They won't get to wear it, and enjoy what.
Well, if you bought, I mean, this reminded me of a conversation where like if you owned a Patek Philippe and it was like one of the world's most expensive watches, are you going to be wearing that sucker, or are you going to be putting that in a vault?
Have you not listened to anything I said? Like my 20 minutes.
No, I'm being that serious. Like, so if you have like one of the world's most expensive Patek Philippe, you'd still just wear it around and just be like, yeah.
I don't give a like that doesn't. If I bought it to wear it, I'm gonna wear it. But if I bought it to, like, let's say, hey, as investment this will go up, like let me put it in safe and then sell it 10 years down the line, that's a different story, right? Like that, if I go to Sotheby's or Phillips auction house and I pick up something, and the goal of that intention, goal of that and intention of that was to buy it as an investment, then yes, right? But like I won't buy a watch as an investment if I'm not gonna wear it. Like my goal is to buy a watch and enjoy the shit out of the watch, because I also am a watch geek when it comes to like watches, right? Like I enjoy a nice looking, clean timepiece on your wrist.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good time to end the podcast here. I think. What do you think? I think we've answered a good amount of questions. I think we can keep doing. We can answer the next questions in the next episode, but we have a bunch left. I think we covered a good deal. Though. All right. Well, for those of you guys who don't know who Henry is, Henry again is the owner of Watchmaking Project. If you guys need any watches serviced, you can hit him up. Henry, what's your website again? Watchmakingproject.com.
Yes, and thank you for the shameless plug. I try not to.
I wanna. I mean, towards the end of this, I mean, you still wanna promote something, right? You want to have your name out there. I mean, you guys already know Henry's personality through this podcast. And you know he's not going to take your money if you don't need it, but he'll also smash his Omega into the wall.
If that's the only thing you got out of my entire story, sure. While you're at it, please be sure to not rub a watch case.
Yes. If it's COVID and infected, please don't do that. But other than that, guys, take care, and hope you guys enjoyed the podcast.
All right, thank you. Stay safe, everyone. Hugs and kisses. Cheers.